All righty, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. That is the day before Friday.
Friday
Which
Junior.
I'm glad I know my days of the week, because I obviously don't know my geography. Because for those of you who listen to this and watch this now or in the future, we were backstage and I very confidently said Seattle was in Oregon. So here we are. So this is not a geography podcast.
Those South Carolina public schools, man.
It's great. I'll tell you what, man, it's fantastic. Yeah, exactly. We won't get into that. Anyways, all that being said, very excited today to be with Rachel and Mike from Motivo Health. Welcome, Rachel and Mike. It's good to see y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. So we'll go ahead and dive in. Lot to cover. And want to go first, quick intros with y'all. So Rachel, quick background about you.
Sure. Yeah. CEO and co-founder of Motivo. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist. So
I'm gonna hit you up after this then.
What?
I'm going to hit you up after this then.
I can diagnose you in like 30 seconds. I think actually I already did. So
That's what I'll stop talking, actually.
I'm going to go ahead and leave now.
So started Motivo to solve a problem I experienced on my own road to licensure, which was lack of access to a clinical supervisor. So Motivo is about licensing new therapists, helping them get started in their career. I live in Richmond, Virginia with my husband and 2 pups. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Can the pup make an appearance?
Oh my gosh. Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
There he is.
Wrigley after Wrigley Field.
He looks so miserable being on
Oh, he's mad.
He's like, dude, you just let me go back to sleep.
I didn't consent to this.
Oh, no, I didn't consent. Right. Mike.
Taylor, and just so you know, Wrigley Field's in Chicago, which is in Illinois.
That's exactly right.
Letting you know.
Yeah.
It's a gum.
Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike. I could tell Rachel was just waiting to shout out Wrigley. Like she does it even unprompted. So yeah,
that's right.
I'm glad
I introduce him at every opportunity. He's like my main selling strategy. I'm like, don't you want to buy Motivo? Look at this puppy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I get it.
So I'm Mike.
Do that with Taylor.
Exactly.
So I'm Mike. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Motivo. I actually met Rachel a couple years into Motivo's journey, and I started out as a consultant. So I was just an engineering consultant. Came in to help Motivo with like an engineering problem, and just got further and further into it. Like I really kind of fell in love with the problem that Rachel was solving, just like the lack of mental health care across the United States. And really like loved working with Rachel, and so decided to sign on full time as CTO and then eventually as co-founder. So that should like I had no intention of joining a job full time. We really wanted to do the consulting thing for a while, but here I am, like 2 years later.
That's awesome. It's so funny. I'm gonna text our group as a reminder, but we need to get y'all connected with Therify. So Therify is a previous guest we had. And they basically are trying to match up. So companies use them to match up with mental health and therapists and counselors.
And then we can connect them with Johnny Crider from Cope Notes.
That's what I was going to say too.
They do a texting platform that's probably more words of affirmation for those in the mental health space and kind of a keep goingness of it. But they've really grown over the last few years as well. So there's definitely a great opportunity there. With that being said, Taylor, let me just hop in with the first question.
I love it.
Motivo, you guys just closed a big Series A. So congratulations to you, Rachel, and Mike, and to the rest of the team over there. Rachel and Mike, maybe from the technical side, touch everybody a little bit about what you guys are trying to solve in the business for those that may not understand the mental health space and supervision and everything else.
Yeah, I can dive in with that. First of all, the fundraise took years off my life. It was like such a hard thing. Like fundraising is not easy, particularly in this climate. But we were super happy to get it done. So, it's the problem we solve is very similar to residency for a doctor. A new doctor graduates, they have to work in residency for a couple of years. Same thing with therapists, social workers, addiction counselors. They graduate, and for 2 years, they have to work under the professional license of of another therapist. That person meets with them weekly, make sure they're doing the right thing with their patients, it's essentially signing off on their clinical hours until they get fully licensed. You have to do that for at least 2 years. It's your responsibility as a new therapist to find and pay for your supervisor. So the problem I experience is that I'm from a rural area of North Georgia, right under Chattanooga, Tennessee. And when I was working towards my license, the closest supervisor was 2 hours away in Atlanta. So I was driving back and forth to Atlanta every week to get to the closest supervisor. And this is not uncommon. There's a lack of mental health therapists in rural and underserved areas. So the idea for Motivo for me came when I saw that states started passing laws saying you could do your supervision virtually through video. And I thought there's an opportunity here to make this easier for people who live in rural areas. So we have a platform of about 1,200 clinical supervisors that we vetted available to new clinicians. We take a cut of each session, marketplace model. Pretty self-explanatory there.
Love that.
Mike, can you kind of explain a little bit about how the tech works? And, I'm sure you guys have to deal with some compliance and regulation around that as well. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you like the core product is, I guess, similar to, I guess, like the closest analogy is like Airbnb. It's like, the product is there to facilitate a connection between someone who wants the service and someone who's trying to get this, or someone who's providing the service. And so we're connecting, supervisees with their supervisors and trying to find like a match for them. And so that's all like technology facilitated. And that's like the, kind of the primary the point of the product is to do that. A lot of what we do on the technical side is like handling like operations and things like that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on the back end that we're trying to make a little bit more efficient. So, like the process of hooking people, like we don't have like any like fancy algorithms to match up people. Like a lot of it's kind of done, we kind of go into our like supervisor database, match people by hand right now. And so there's, we believe strongly that like you should find the right person for the supervisee. And so a lot of what we do is try to make that a little bit easier on our back office staff.
Is the part of that to do similar to Airbnb, like with almost like a rating system, or is there much more specialized than that? Like I'm a marriage and family therapist, and my emphasis, if I'm going through to be under supervision, is to be marriage and family therapy versus other tracks. Kind of how does that matching work?
Yeah, a lot of what we're trying to do is try to figure out what makes a good match as well. Like, so we're digging deep into that, trying to figure that out. Like there are different modalities and specialties that you can specify. That Rachel could talk more about this, like in terms of just like what modalities and specialties are. But in terms of just like being able to find like what is it that makes a good fit. There's like different, it's not just like your license. There's different ways that you do therapy that I think make you a good match for someone versus not.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, definitely the specialty and modality is a key piece of it. And I mean, I think there's even other demographic information that leads to a good match as well. I mean, I know that I talked early on to clinicians of color who were driving 2 hours just to get to the closest supervisor of color because they really wanted someone who understood their background and experience and the patients that they serve. That's a huge piece. It's not just about like logging on and who's ever available. When you're doing clinical work, it really matters that you're meeting with someone who understands you, who gets the kind of patients that you want to work with. Very similar to how you wouldn't want to just like have any old therapist. You want someone who's like right for you. So yeah, a lot of what we do is just making that process easier.
Something else.
I love your drivers for this. This is so great. Yeah. So keep going. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that something else that the technology helps facilitate. Like when I was when I, like I'm an outsider to this space. I'm not a therapist myself. And when I came into the space, I was like, it is absolutely wild how difficult it is to get licensed. Like just, it's the process is so hostile. Just like you have to keep track of so many things yourself and like, make sure that you have all the right paperwork. And so like one thing that the technology does help with is just like keeping track of like how many hours you've done. So that's,
that's cool.
even that one thing is like, you have to do it on your own if you're not, doing it through a platform like this. And that's very, and like, getting paperwork and stuff like that signed off. It's like, we're hoping to do even more to make this process more streamlined and easy. Like, I think technology is like a great use case to try to figure that out.
I have to imagine you would probably have to go into the continuing education space after this, right? You kind of keep your profile up and then you do the relicensing and, and all of that. I think it's every couple of years or 2 or 3. Is that part of the roadmap?
Yes. How do you know everything about being a therapist? Yes, we actually just launched our next product of continuing education for that exact reason. Once you become licensed, you have to continue collecting hours each year. I just also want to double click on that piece around the licensure process being so difficult. 64% of people who get a master's degree in counseling never make it through the licensure process. So we're losing over half of the supply of new therapists before they even get started. It's expensive.
That's unreal.
It's hard to find a supervisor. People burn out in the early years of their field if they aren't well supported. So it's a huge problem, especially at a time that mental health is like on everybody's mind,
Oh yeah. And are you getting a lot of your, I guess, upcoming supervisees from specific universities, or is it kind of just open SEO, or what does that look like from partnerships?
Definitely university partnerships is a big piece of it. We have a great relationship with a couple of universities. I would say the other piece, though, is our B2B line of business is really big for us. That's working with community mental health organizations and treatment centers that have hired pre-licensed clinicians for a long time and done supervision internally. Problem with that is that it's just like they're stretched very thin. The few licensed people doing supervision as well is just a burden. So they have found it to be, an incredible asset to be able to pass over the supervision responsibility to us so that we can help them get licensed, what we do and what we know. So that's our main kind of growing segment.
Rachel, Mike, I have a question for y'all. So one of the things we get a lot is like, I love the stories you're telling. It sounds great. It's all happy, but I want to hear more mistakes. So I want to ask y'all, Rachel, from a business side, would love to hear maybe a biggest mistake and how y'all recovered, or how you pivoted. And then Mike, especially because I'm super nerdy, would love to know maybe a technical error that may have happened and kind of how you pivoted. So would love to hear from you.
We're getting raw, people. Let's go.
Yes, I love it. Therapist here. So let's do it. So two main mistakes I'll call out. One is early on. I mean, the product was built by a therapist. I did the MVP using Shopify and uploaded a bunch of supervisor profiles and manually matched people. So the journey to get someone of Mike's caliber took a little while. And that was, a barrier to our growth in the early days. I mean, if I had Mike from day one, oh my goodness, we probably would have grown at a much higher rate, faster rate. So I think.
Yeah, Mike, I saw your profile.
Oh, right.
Pretty smart dude. Pretty smart dude. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
He's a diamond.
Didn't accept my LinkedIn invite, but that's another issue.
I think that having technical expertise, and I think this is a piece that, maybe some companies outside of the Bay Area or founders that live in more rural, just regular parts of the country, really experience, where are you going to find that technical expertise of somebody like Mike, who's worked at Airbnb and, Google and Yahoo. He has seen so many different, technical issues and has solved those. We didn't have access to talent like that in the early days. So I would say that's one piece. The other piece, and this is something Mike and I are talking a lot about right now, is focus. So I think the kryptonite for a startup is just trying to try all these new fancy things and running after all these product adjacencies, especially in our field, because everybody needs mental health supply. So we get asked all the time to, create this add-on or do this or expand to this area. And, we wanted to follow all of those things. I wanted to follow all of those things, but it was hurting the business because it's taking us away from the one thing that was working, that we do best, which is virtual clinical supervision. So that's something that we're trying to kind of course correct and come back to, one North Star goal, be the clinical supervision provider of every mental health organization rather than trying to do everything in our early days.
I love that.
How did you overcome
Go ahead.
Daniel? Just having launched some products and just some of the, especially ones that require a little bit more, I guess, sensitivity towards compliance or security or privacy, how did you overcome some of the like, yeah, we're a startup, but we know what the heck we're doing when it came to, you know, privacy of, I guess, auditing counseling sessions is really what you have to go through, right? So what did some of that look like, and how did you approach that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one piece that people sometimes misunderstand about the word clinical supervision is that it doesn't actually touch the patient in any way, in the sense that it's two professionals talking on a video screen about their cases, but the patient is not involved. They're not watching the patient. They're not even listening to recordings of the patient session. So our platform doesn't touch any PHI, protected health information.
Yep.
So that was like an easier thing for us to get to a place of like, okay, we can do this because it's professional to professional versus interacting with patients.
I love that. And then Mike, biggest technical blunder so far that you're willing to share?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add on to Rachel's. This isn't my technical blunder, but like when I got here and like heard about Rachel's like founding story with like the whole Shopify thing, I was like really impressed. That's like the epitome of, like, people talk about lean startup all the time. That's like the leanest it gets. Just like, she validated that there's like a problem, and I was like, just so like I feel like more startups need to do that like early on, just like getting an idea out there in like the most like cost efficient way possible. I like when I heard about that story, I was just like, Rachel's gonna make it. So really love that. Even as a technology person, like I bristle at that. Like, it's just like there's no automation there, but that is like totally the right approach to solving a problem when you don't know if it's a problem yet.
So awesome.
Yeah. And then, so just like thinking about technical blunders, my first couple weeks, I deleted all of our profile pictures from the platform by accident. It just basically, there was like this infrastructure I didn't like quite understand, and I like ran some command, and it started deleting all these like profile pictures, and we deleted probably like 70% of them by accident. And the only reason that it was because the script was like broken. Like, it's the only reason it didn't like delete 100% was because the script was like broken. And so yeah, that was definitely a blunder that I wandered into, like just not understanding well enough like our architecture before trying to do stuff, and not like, honestly, like whenever my engineers make mistakes like that, I always try to make it at Google and like all these other companies, like they practice something called the blameless postmortem, because when an engineer makes a mistake like that, it's always because that the system failed them. And so that's what happened with me. It's just like the system was not set up in a way to prevent me from deleting all the profile pictures with like one command. So that's definitely something that, like, I'm not trying to absolve myself of blame. I should have understood it better because I'm a CTO, but yeah, so that's one mistake. And then another mistake was also pretty early on during my time here was we were ending a contract with one of our software developers when I got here. So we were winding that up, and he had been working on this feature for like 9 months. He had spent like a majority of his time here like working on it to some degree. I think like the devs when I first got here were like very kind of had like projects on the back burner. They just like kind of like had noodled on things over time, and he had been working on this thing for 9 months. And when I looked at like the pull request for it, like it was just like the code changes that he needed to do, it was like this gigantic like thing that I wasn't sure if I could spend the time to like really understand. It was like 10,000 lines of code. I had no idea what was going on, and he was leaving. And so just to tell you, like, a little bit, like we were basically like outsourcing the creation of recurring sessions to Zoom. So we would like send the parameter to Zoom, and Zoom would tell us when these sessions would happen. So if we had like a weekly session, we would tell Zoom that this session is going to be weekly, and then we would get that information back from Zoom. And so this project was intended to pull that all in-house, like to basically do all that calculation internally. So it was basically a scheduling system. And when I got here, I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna like, he's winding off the project soon, and I was just like, I'm going to pretend that this was launched when I got here. And so I told him to launch it. And it was like a catastrophe. Like people were seeing like duplicate, triplicate sessions on their dashboard. It took me a full like 3 12-hour days of just working on this problem to unwind it. And then like in the end, we didn't even have this project launched. And then eventually we brought that back in-house and we did it with like another team of engineers. But that was probably the biggest mistake, was just like not killing this project, which is, like I just felt bad that I wouldn't want him to leave without, being able to like see his work come to fruition.
Sure.
But sometimes you just have to be the bad guy.
Yeah. That makes sense. Oh, I mean, just one last question from my side here. As you were going through your journey to fundraising, can you speak a little bit as to what that looked like to just show your vision? I mean, I think it was you showed to us, in like 20 seconds, clearly there's the problem statement. Here's the solution. Here's why, let's go. What was that process to get to that in such a succinct manner? And how did that help you, in your fundraising?
Yeah, I went through Techstars Atlanta in 2018, and that was really helpful for me. You had to like memorize your pitch over and over and over. They really helped me like craft it in a way that like I could help people outside of the industry understand what the problem was. So that was incredibly helpful to me. I think just like over time, like understanding that people don't have a lot of like patience for, especially investors, for like get to the point as quickly as possible and in fewest words possible. So that was helpful. I mean, I think that the thing that I struggled with the most from a fundraising perspective is setting the vision for how big the company could get, because a lot of times when people hear it, they're like, that sounds like a niche problem. That sounds like a small problem. So I think just like really sharing the story of, the supply problem in mental health is one of the main problems like facing the industry. And if we can own that solution of early career graduates and helping them get through the licensure process and launch into their career, it solves a whole lot of problem, and it's incredibly valuable to all of these other mental health startups that are, coming and trying to recruit clinicians. I'd say that there's a lot of people who are focusing on solving different areas of the mental health space, but a lot of them are just like redistributing the supply that currently exists rather than creating new supply. So I think that differentiator is like the bigger part of the story. And I remember someone telling me early on, like, don't pitch to the investors you want the most at the beginning, because you're going to suck at pitching. And I really did. Like the story got better and better and better as I went through the fundraising process. But I didn't take their advice. I totally pitched to the best investors first. So, lesson learned again.
We didn't get a call. I don't.
Wait, do you guys invest?
We do.
Yeah.
I'm like drafting an email.
Series B.
That's one of our reasons for starting this was we kept meeting so many great people all the time, just in the midst of what we were doing, and we're like, some of these stories just need to be shared, right? Mm-hmm. And we have independent, really, great networks, and we're like, how do we, combine those and just get stories out, right? That. And then, and the other one is, consulting, right? So how do we can help, right? And so
but,
it's been really fun.
To say that's so helpful to early stage founders. I mean, truly, that don't have a network. Like, especially, my husband worked in the entertainment industry in LA for several years. And like, we moved out there for that because like everybody who does anything in entertainment, like lives in LA, and I think that same was true for Silicon Valley for a while, where it was like, if you wanted to do this, you needed to go to the place where all of that was happening. So if you don't do that, how do you build a successful company? So really, the consulting and advice and things like this, the voices that you're giving to early stage founders, like what a big impact that you're having. So thanks for that.
I love that.
Thanks. Well, tell your friends.
Thank you.
Yes,
well, thank you again for hanging out with us today, Rachel, Mike. We appreciate it a ton. And we will follow up with some emails and some connections. Okay.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Great job, you guys. Love the product.
Yeah, great job. Love it.
Okay,
all right. See y'all.
Bye.
We're still here.
Should I leave?
Yeah.